Hi, I'm Nick Bilton, author of the book I Live in the Future, and here's how it works.
This book will take you on a journey into the future of technology, business, and society. We'll look at some of the positive effects computers are having on our brains, how the next generation of kids shares and consumes information, and when they actually decide to pay for it. We'll also look at why surgeons should play video games. And finally, we take a look at the porn industry and what they can tell us about the future. I just wanted to take a moment to walk you through a few of the additional features you'll find in this book.
Whether you're reading this on an e-reader, mobile phone, or in a printed book, you'll be able to interact with the content beyond the words on the page. You'll be able to join a discussion with other readers about each chapter. You'll also be able to watch related videos and see additional links and information.
At the beginning of each chapter within this book, you'll find a series of black and white squares called a QR code.
These are really simple to use. The way they work is you can take a picture using a free application you can download for your mobile phone, and then they'll take you off to additional content on the mobile website.
Then you'll be able to watch videos, click on links, see additional content, and even comment on a chapter directly from your mobile phone. You can download a QR code reader from nickbilton.com, or you can go to your favorite search engine and type in the words QR code reader followed by the type of phone you use. Finally, for those readers with an iPhone or iPad, there's a free downloadable application available in the iTunes Store. So thanks for purchasing I Live in the Future, and here's how it works. I hope you enjoy learning why your world, work, and brain are being creatively disrupted.
Okay, what I'm going to talk about is that the author's main strategy to support the argument in the book. The argument in every chapter supports the main idea of the book, which is the change of our life in the future, thanks to the development of technology, will be fantastic, and how it will be like. We can classify his argument method that mainly used in this book by two categories. The first strategy is predicting the future world based on the history of the technology. In other words, it's like the technology has been developed in this way, so our future is going to be like that. This is the inductive reasoning that approaches the argument by assuming the continuity of the events. Then let me give some examples. In the first chapter, the writer mentions that the pornography industry have led the development of modern technology. He gives some examples of the development of video recording technology by Sony and JVC's competition in the 1970s. He says demand of pornography had accelerated the development rate. Meanwhile, the porn magazines began to lose their positions, and the internet porn are replacing the role of these magazines. In the second chapter, Bilton pointed out the skeptical viewpoint of those who are conservative about technological development. Historically, many critics believe that the development of new technology exerts a harmful influence to people. However, Bilton points out, unlike those worries, have not been easily swept away from the dangerous factors so far. In the third chapter, Bilton argues that the Internet society establishes a new concept of community that is built up by our cognitive process. As an example, he wrote about his own story that he felt a sense of kinship with a person who he had never met before. This concept of new community can be extended to the worldwide. The other strategy is supporting an argument by analyzing what's happening in the real world and verifying the argument by linking it up to scientific experiment. This is also an inductive argument which is backed up by a more credible source. In the chapter 5, he argues about the increase of brain use that occurs from using technology. Even though there are lots of incorrect information on the internet, people can be exposed to more words while they are using the internet. Also, a group of surgeons who were familiar with video games had better performance than the other group who were not.
You can tell a lot about someone just by the way they speak to their audience. Are they nervous, robotic, cocky? In Nick Bilton's case, his ethos is that of a knowledgeable man, but not too abrasive with his knowledge. He doesn't overload or overstimulate his readers with an excessive amount of information or big words, but rather puts his book into layman's terms. He's also very passionate about the topic of his book. This made the book more exciting and more interesting to read, because let's face it, an author that gets bored with their own topic, well, that sucks, and we hate to read it. And that's why we get distracted by YouTube, Facebook, and various other sites when reading. But Bilton really kept his passion going. He comes across as more of a buddy-buddy kind of guy, like he wants to befriend his audience or just let them know he can be trusted. And he proves he can be trusted by being honest in an interview about his newspaper, the New York Times. In his interview, the interviewer asked him if he reads his own company's newspaper, and he blatantly told them that he is no longer subscribed and gets his news from the internet, even at the risk of his entire company being livid with him. Now, doesn't that sound like someone you can trust? I mean, a reporter or journalist who doesn't even read the traditional form of news that they write for. Wouldn't you want to trust someone that you can relate to more?
As Songjun pointed out two main analysis methods, history and experiment or research, I choose two significant facts used to support his argument. One of two is fallacious, and the other one is valid and reasonable. The first one is related to history analysis. He starts with the underlying premise: porn industry leads the new approaches and technologies considering its history of development. If porn industry could solve the problems and transition from print magazines, surely the rest of media industry could follow suit and save itself from imminent death. I found that this statement is fallacious. First of all, there is perfect solution since the solution proposed by porn industry might not solve every problem. Second, there is hasty generalization because he implicitly considers the porn industry as a leader due to 2 or 3 new approaches and technologies of its development. Third, obviously, there is a fallacy of appeal to fear and exaggeration when you remind the word imminent death. And the second argument continues, which is evidence, example, and statistics. Porn industry made a breakthrough to appeal niche customers with niche contents that are personalized, targeted, and tailored. Then people pay for quality, great storytelling of contents at a reasonable price. So therefore, he concluded that quality, great storytelling, and connection to personalized experience of contents are solutions for the problem caused by transition from print media. And as a result, I think there is faulty reasoning because of the first one. On the other hand, the second one is related to experiment analysis. There are two groups. The one is net savvy, who uses online a lot, knows very well how to use online stuff, and the other one is net naive, who doesn't use net a lot and feels comfortable with printed pages. The interesting here is net savvy group does not consist of young people, both two groups of people are mid-30s, 40s, 50s, and etc. And the results turns out that while processing information during online search, the brains of net-savvy activated more than twice those of net-naive. Second, brain's nearest nerve cells can reform as we learn and grow. By the way, this fact is proven by another experiment of learning juggling and changes in brain in the same chapter of his book. Third, as net-naive repeatedly used the internet over 1 week, their scans of brain showed that brains started to adapt and respond. Their brains also began to show twice as much stimulation from reading a web page as from reading a printed page. In conclusion, he argues that usage of online technology does not destroy or harm brains, ruining our intellect. Instead, it encourages human brains to change their structure and rewire as a way of learning. So we think this is sound argument and conclusion since the result of experiment is trustworthy. Although I didn't mention at the beginning, researchers did tests and confirmed that both groups of people have similar reading ability while processing information using printed magazines. So there's only one variable in this experiment, usage of net. And the way researchers divide people into two groups is fair, because they didn't make net-savvy group as a representative of the youth, nor do they make net-naive as a representative of the elderly.
Teaching the elderly to use internet search engines like Google and Yahoo may help fight dementia and memory loss, according to a new study. Scientists at UCLA found middle-aged and older adults who don't have much experience using the internet had increased activity in key regions of the brain after searching the web for an hour each day for 2 weeks. A small study of 24 volunteers between the ages of 55 and 78 were split into two groups, those who were familiar with the internet and those who had little experience with the web. Brain scans showed that participants with little online experience had brain activation patterns similar to those familiar with internet searches in areas of the brain important in working memory and decision-making. Scientists suggest that searching online might just be an easy way to improve brain function in older adults. For today's Health Minute, I'm Melissa Long.
The future brain may be one that's seamlessly connected to technology. We may have little sensors on our heads so that if you want to meet someone for coffee, you just think about it, and that thought is beamed wirelessly to your friend, and you can sip your coffee and you don't even have to talk. You could just beam your thoughts to each other. And what we found, people who had never searched online before, their brain was activated during the book reading task in areas you'd expect, but it didn't look any different when they were searching online. Very similar pattern. Frontal lobe, visual cortex, and so forth. People who are internet savvy look very much the same reading the book, but huge difference when they searched online. More than twofold greater activation throughout the brain, and especially the front part of the brain, the thinking brain that controls decision making. So here's your brain on a book, and here's your brain on Google. There's a tendency to judge it and to think that this is bad. Many times parents and educators will complain, how can my kids do their homework if they're text messaging, IMing, and listening to their iPods at the same time? My answer is, how are they doing in their grades? It's a different world today. They have to learn how to deal with the technology. Technology train is way out of the station, is charging down the track. The question is, how are we going to adapt, and how are we going to improve our lives?